Greetings from our channel again. Even though Doris Day's grandson isn't well known, people have always been interested in his relationship to the iconic actress. He is finally talking about something that followers have long assumed at the age of 41. His disclosure is throwing new light on a side of Doris Day that few people ever knew, including his private life and his relationship with his famous grandmother. Let's examine his remarks in more detail and see why they have everyone talking. In Ohio's Cincinnati. Her parents were German, Alma Sophia Welz, a housewife, and Friedrich Wilhelm von Kappelhoff, a music educator and choir conductor. Out of the three children, Doris was the youngest. Her brother Paul was a few years older than her, and her brother Richard passed away before she was born. Doris had difficulties at a young age because she was raised in a low-income family during the Great Depression. Her parents' tense marriage finally ended in divorce, which was uncommon at the time. This had a profound effect on young Doris. Her future would be shaped by her passions for dancing and music, which she found comfort in despite these challenges. Doris received free dance lessons at the age of 12 after winning a dance competition by standing on her hands for almost 3 hours. This triumph demonstrated her tenacity and fortitude. But her hopes of becoming a professional dancer were dashed when she was 14 years old and suffered a broken leg in a devastating car accident. Physicians contemplated amputation. However, she spent more than a year in bed following several surgeries. Doris began singing during this time of immobility, drawing influence from Ella Fitzgerald's songs. Alma signed her kid up for singing lessons with Grace Rain after realizing how talented her daughter was. Doris's path in music was paved with Grace's early recognition of her extraordinary talent. Doris started working as a professional entertainer at the age of 15, earning $5 a night at a nearby Chinese restaurant. Bandleader Barney Rapp noticed her one night when she was singing at a local nightclub. Rapp wanted her to be his female vocalist after being impressed by her voice. Doris's determination to take advantage of chances was demonstrated by the fact that, because of her age, she had to pose as 18 in order to perform in establishments that served L**********. At the advice of Rapp, Doris took on the stage name Doris Day in 1939 when she was just 17 years old. Day after day, her performance of the song inspired me. She was apprehensive at first, but she eventually got used to the term, which would soon come to represent Hollywood fame. A major turning point in Doris Day's career occurred when she joined Les Brown's band on March 15, 1940, at the age of just 18. She overcame her initial stage nervousness and won the lead vocalist role after impressing the bandleader with her performance of Embraceable You. She experienced both personal tragedies and accomplishments throughout her tenure with the band. While on tour with the band in 1941, Doris learned the heartbreaking news that her brother Paul had died in a car crash. She decided to perform that evening in spite of her anguish, and her passionate performance brought the crowd to tears. Her career was distinguished by her tenacity. Sentimental Journey, a song that struck a deep chord with soldiers returning from World War II, was Doris's first huge hit in 1945. It's interesting to note that she recorded the song while suffering from a cold, which gave her voice a characteristically husky tone. Her reputation as a budding star was cemented when the song sold over 1 million copies in its first year. Doris signed a 7-year, $1 million contract with Columbia Records in 1947, marking the beginning of her solo career. This was an extraordinary agreement for a female performer at the time. At first, she didn't like the songs that were chosen for her. She thought they were old and boring. She recorded It's Magic, a huge success that sold over 2 million copies and earned her an Oscar nomination, after arguing for more modern material. To the amazement of the studio audience, she recorded the song in a single take. Her musical breakthrough gave her access to Hollywood. She was suggested by songwriters Sammy Cahn and Jules Stein for the 1948 movie Romance on the High Seas. Director Michael Curtis, who hailed Doris as the most ideal girl he had ever seen, cast her in the starring part despite her lack of acting experience. Her remarkable film career began with the success of The Picture. Doris performed in a number of popular musicals during the 1950s, such as The Pajama Game, 1957, and Calamity Jane, 1953. She played a fearless frontierswoman in Calamity Jane, executing her own stunts while filming, even breaking a rib. The movie made nearly $3.7 million at the box office. Her versatility was further demonstrated in The Pajama Game, which helped the film make $5 million and cemented her place as a leading lady in Hollywood. Despite being America's sweetheart, Doris Day's private life was far from idyllic. She suffered heartbreak despite her radiant smile and easy charisma on screen. Treachery and a series of problematic relationships that frequently made her feel helpless in her own life. A cycle of suffering began when she married trombonist Al Jordan for the first time at the age of 17. Doris fell for what she thought was love in spite of her mother's adamant protests. But the truth was much more diabolical. Jordan was physically abusive, possessive, and jealous. The day following their wedding, he struck her for the first time. The violence intensified after that. Jordan's anger got uncontrollable as he accused Doris of cheating repeatedly. One of Jordan's most vicious attacks on Doris occurred when she was expecting their only child, Terry. He had beaten her so badly that she almost miscarried after she refused to get the abortion he had desired. He threatened to kill them both and drove her to a remote area while she was in her 8th month of pregnancy. Doris was able to get away because to her fast thinking and instincts for survival. Despite giving birth to a healthy boy in February 1942, she realized she could not continue in the marriage because the experience left her permanently damaged. Although she never looked back after filing for divorce, Jordan's injuries to her persisted. Doris would later acknowledge that she was always reminded of that horrible night whenever she sat comfortably in the front seat of a car after that day. Her second marriage to George Widler, a musician, appeared to be a new beginning. Bandmates had introduced them, and he seemed to provide the company she so desperately needed. However, Widler became aloof and chilly soon after their 1946 wedding. His admission that he couldn't bear being married to someone whose reputation eclipsed his own was the last straw. Their marriage terminated after 8 months. Doris was heartbroken. Then Martin Melcher arrived, the man who would transform her life in ways she never would have thought possible. He took over as her manager and adopted her son Terry, giving the impression that he was loyal. Unaware of the deceit taking place behind the scenes, she put all of her trust in him for almost 20 years. Doris was unaware that Melcher and Jerome Rosenthal, his business partner, were covertly mishandling her money and directing her profits toward dubious business endeavors and unsuccessful investments. Her whole fortune, valued at more than $150 million in today's currency, was vanishing without her awareness. The treachery didn't end there, either. Doris learned the whole truth about the lie when Melcher passed away unexpectedly in 1968. In addition to leaving her completely broke, she discovered that Melcher had surreptitiously enrolled her in the Doris Day Show without getting her permission. Since that was the only option to settle the enormous debts he left behind, she was forced to fulfill the promise. She and Rosenthal engaged in a protracted legal struggle and received a $22 million damage award in 1974. She only collected a small portion of that sum, though, because of insurance disputes. The emotional harm was irreversible, though. Once at the height of her Hollywood glory, Doris was left broken and deceived by the man she trusted most. Animal welfare became Doris Day's primary passion as her Hollywood career faded. Although she had always loved animals, her commitment was strengthened by a painful event from her early years. She had a puppy named Tiny when she was a little girl, and he was tragically struck by a car. Doris was heartbroken. As she grew older, she swore to dedicate her life to saving animals because of the helplessness she felt at that moment. Doris refused to ignore the suffering of animals, even when she was a Hollywood star. She was horrified by the abuse of animals on set while filming The Man Who Knew Too Much in Morocco. Until something was done, she wouldn't keep working. Her influence and unshakable moral compass were demonstrated when her demands were fulfilled and the animals were given the required care. In 1978, her devotion led to the establishment of the Doris Day Pet Foundation. A modest attempt to aid local rescues swiftly grew into a more extensive campaign. Later, the organization changed its name to the Doris Day Animal Foundation, or DDAF, and began addressing more general concerns, such as spaying and neutering initiatives to stop the overpopulation of pets. She started the World Spay Day campaign in 1995 to increase public awareness of the value of spaying and neutering pets. Millions of animals' lives were improved as it spread throughout more than 70 countries. Doris established a sanctuary for needy animals at her house in California's Carmel Valley. She provided a safe haven for innumerable pets that she personally rescued. She frequently had 30 dogs at once, all of whom received the affection and attention they were due. Even though Doris left Hollywood, her impact on the animal welfare movement only increased. She used her popularity to raise awareness of the topic that was most important to her, advocated for legislative changes, and spoke out against animal abuse. Doris devoted her time and resources to animal protection even as she became older. She shocked everyone by releasing her new album, My Heart, in 2011 at the age of 89. Her late son Terry wrote a number of the previously recorded songs on the album. Doris became the oldest artist to have a top 10 album with new material in the UK after the commercial success of her intensely personal record. Avoiding interviews and public appearances. On her 97th birthday in 2019, she made her final public appearance and thanked her followers for carrying on her goal. Her death occurred quietly at home a few weeks later. Her influence went much beyond Hollywood. She was not only a singer and actress. She stood up for those without a voice. Those who knew her well realized that her greatest contribution was not on the big screen but rather to the lives of the innumerable animals she rescued, even if the world knows her for her golden voice and contagious smile. However, a cloud hung over Doris's latter years even as she dedicated herself to the cause that was most important to her. Behind the scenes, a serious family conflict was developing that would completely cut off her sole grandson, Ryan Melcher, from her life. And that heartbreaking reality became apparent after Doris Day's death. With relatives and the animals she loved by her side, Doris Day's last years ought to have been pleasant and meaningful. However, there was something disturbing going on underneath the idyllic Carmel Valley lifestyle. For more than 14 years, Ryan Melcher, her sole grandchild, who had admired his grandmother from a distance, was totally excluded from her life. In 2019, the devastating reality came to light. Like everyone else in the globe, Ryan found out about Doris's passing via Facebook. For Ryan, this agonizing realization validated his long-held suspicions. He had been separated from his grandmother by someone. After Terry Melcher, Doris's only child, passed away in 2004, the problem started. Terry had been a constant in his mother's life, a well-known music producer. Despite their relationship's ups and downs, they shared a strong bond. Since Terry was no longer there to fill the vacuum left by his death, Ryan's relationship with Doris started to deteriorate. Doris invited Ryan to supper shortly after Terry passed away, seemingly reaching out in an attempt to re-establish contact. Ryan had been waiting for this moment. His relationship with Doris has soured since his parents' 1997 divorce. The opportunity to restore what had been lost was presented by this dinner invitation. However, a man by the name of Bob Bashara intervened before Ryan could even see his grandmother. Ryan was invited to a private meeting at the Cypress Inn, a boutique hotel in Carmel that Doris co-owned, by Bashara, her business manager. There, Ryan was asked a chilly, strategic inquiry. "You want to visit Doris, but why?" Ryan later recalled that "she's my grandmother," so he was shocked and perplexed. However, the reaction he got was disastrous. He would not be permitted to see her, Bashara told him. The guilt, he added, lay with Ryan's parents and earlier family tensions. Ryan's access to his grandmother came to an end along with the meeting. Efforts to re-establish contact throughout the years were met with silence. According to reports, Bashara had increased his control over Doris's life by erecting security gates surrounding her house and limiting who might enter. The formerly hospitable celebrity was suddenly utterly alone after spending decades letting fans and animals alike into her heart. Ryan had accepted that he would never be able to say goodbye to Doris when she died in 2019 at the age of 97. But he was troubled by the loss of their years. Ryan revealed the devastating reality of their estrangement in a Facebook post in the days after her passing, breaking his silence. The public, who had always regarded Doris as a devoted, family-oriented woman, found resonance in his remarks. "For everyone who has inquired, like the most of you, I learned of my grandmother's death via social media. Bob Bashara, my grandmother's manager, managed her inheritance and governed access to her life, preventing me from seeing her for 14 years. There is so much more to the story, but it's a heartbreaking truth I have to live with." The revelation stunned Doris Day's longtime fans. How could a woman known for her warmth and generosity be kept away from her own grandson? And why had no one spoken up about it before? Bashara, for his part, denied any wrongdoing. He claimed that multiple attempts had been made to reconnect Ryan and Doris, but that Ryan had declined. He pointed to a past statement on Ryan's website, where he had once asked people not to contact him about Hollywood or his famous grandmother. But many were skeptical. Some believed that Doris, known for her deep-seated desire for privacy, may have simply wanted to retreat from the world. Others, however, suspected that those around her had taken advantage of her trust, controlling her interactions and ensuring that only a select few had access to her. No matter where the truth lies, one fact remains. One of the most beloved icons in American history spent the last years of her life without ever seeing her only grandson. And when she was gone, Ryan was left with nothing but unanswered questions and a deep sense of loss. At 41, Doris Day's grandson admits what we all suspected, that his grandmother's later years were not as peaceful as they seemed. For years, the world viewed Doris as the embodiment of happiness. A star whose sunny disposition and heartfelt performances brought joy to millions. But the painful reality of her final years, one of isolation, controlled access, and unanswered questions, has left a lingering sense of mystery. After her passing, Ryan Melcher continued to reflect on the years he lost with his grandmother. He often wondered if she had ever questioned why he stopped visiting. Had she truly been kept in the dark, or had she simply chosen to let go of those family ties? Some, like Doris' longtime publicist, Charlie Cullen Walters, argue that Ryan's version of events is not the whole truth. Walters insisted that efforts had been made to bring Ryan and Doris back together, particularly around her 90th birthday in 2014, but that Ryan had chosen to remain distant. Still, others close to the family believe that Doris' manager had far more control over her life than many realized. Regardless of who was responsible, the end result remains the same. Doris Day and her grandson were kept apart, and the opportunity for reconciliation was lost forever. Beyond the family turmoil, Doris's final years were marked by a deep commitment to animal welfare. She spent her days caring for the animals on her 11-acre ranch, tending to rescue dogs, and advocating for spay and neuter programs. She had long since left behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, choosing instead to dedicate her time to a cause she truly believed in. She was also known for her frugality and simple way of life. Despite her status as a Hollywood legend, Doris lived modestly, eating off paper plates and keeping a washing machine in her bedroom. She never sought attention or accolades, even turning down the Kennedy Center honors and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But while Doris chose to step away from the spotlight, the story of her life and the questions surrounding her later years continue to fascinate fans and historians alike. Her death in 2019 marked the end of an era, but it also reignited a conversation about the darker side of fame. Yet in the end, Doris Day's legacy remains untouchable. She was more than just an actress, more than just a singer. She was a force of nature, a woman who defied the odds and overcame heartbreak time and time again. Her story is one of resilience, love, and mystery. A reminder that even the brightest stars can have shadows lurking behind them. Do you think family legacies come with hidden truths that eventually surface? What would you have guessed about Doris Day's grandson before his big reveal at 41? Stay tuned for more surprising stories and don't forget to join us again for the latest updates.